We ended the last session concluding that it is more logical that the first cause in the creation of the universe was an intelligent, creative entity of some kind than that it was a non-living substance. But then we asked the question, is there any additional proof that we can point to in order to further validate our assumption? Hello, I'm Chris Meyer. Welcome to Session 8 of Are We Being Deceived? Searching for Truth in Religion. If the universe was created by an intelligent, creative entity, then it only makes sense that the development of that universe was also the result of that same entity. Now, don't anticipate where I'm going here. I am not an adversary of science. I support science completely. Many people see a conflict between creation by design and science. I am not among those. If an intelligent entity is the creator of all things, then this same being is the creator of science and all of the other disciplines. If this is true, then the more information we have concerning life and our universe, the more evidence there should be to support the theory that there is a supreme existence that has carefully and intelligently orchestrated the creation of the universe. Science and math can help us in our quest for understanding. However, what I am adverse to are the many scientists, like many religious folks, who are so biased that they do not consider all of the options objectively. And that's what we're going to try to do in this session. We'll examine the more popular explanations of the origin of life, analyze them using logic and common sense, and then come to a conclusion based on that analysis. If you plan to study the various theories concerning the origin of life, you'll need to allocate several years for the study. I don't have the time to make a dent in listing those theories, nor do I possess the intelligence to understand most of them, quite honestly. However, scientific theories, whether it is biogenesis, abiogenesis, or any of the others, can all be lumped under one general concept. The concept that a living organism evolved from non-living matter or non-living substances. Since they're all striving to achieve the same conclusion, I will simply refer to them as spontaneous generation, as I do in my book. On the other side of the coin, so to speak, is the more religious concept of the origin of life, the more popular being creationism and intelligent design. For the moment, I will combine creationism and intelligent design because they both credit an intelligent entity with the creation of life. Let's take a look at these various theories briefly and logically. Generally speaking, science proposes that over time, non-living matter somehow came together in a primordial soup that resulted in a living organism. So what evidence is there to support this theory? While much experimentation has been done and is still being done today, even with our sophisticated laboratories, scientists have not been able to produce life from non-living substances. Perhaps they've come close to constructing the building blocks of life, but no life has been produced from non-living substances. Keep in mind that we are limited to what we know about and have experienced in this world. If there was some mystical chemical or substance that existed billions of years ago that was capable of producing life, we don't have any evidence of it, and any suggestion that it once existed is merely speculation. As far as we know from actual historical data, there are no examples that clearly offer proof that such a process has ever occurred. Simply put, the proponents of this theory that life suddenly appeared spontaneously, believe that life was a result of chance. They propose that over time the necessary chemicals, having been produced as a result of the changing environment, mixed and mingled together, and that this combining of chemicals resulted in the creation of the basic building blocks of life. And eventually, over time, these building blocks became a living organism. In this scenario, chance was the creator of life. As I mentioned, at this time there is no evidence at all to support this theory. We have to remember that life is more than a chemical reaction. It involves complex systems and processes, a way to consume nourishment, a digestive system to process that nourishment, and a reproductive system for the survival of the life form. One of the most accepted definitions of life is the ability of an organism to grow and reproduce itself. Even in a very primitive organism, these capabilities or processes could not have evolved over time. They must have existed in the first living organism, even though it might have been a very primitive system. These processes are essential for sustaining life. There are other problems with this theory. If life did originate through a slow chemical process, did it occur only in one place with one organism being produced, or in several places with many organisms produced of slightly varying kinds? If it occurred in several places, the odds of such a chance meeting of just the right chemicals in just the right environment to create this new life are even more overwhelming. We just do not have any examples of life coming from non-living substances. On the other hand, we do have significant evidence of living organisms coming from living organisms. Every living thing reproduces in one way or another. Although I assume the creation of a new being or organism would be very different, we can easily see how life can come from life. So, if the first cause of the universe was a living entity, it makes sense that the first cause of the first living organism was a living entity. Let's look at evolution for further proof that our conclusion is valid. Once again, we are faced with two alternatives: that evolution is the result of chance or coincidence, or it is the result of a specific design. Let's examine the first possibility. I'll have to admit that I have trouble with the theory that things have evolved by way of chance. Some people will argue that if there are enough opportunities for something to occur, that eventually it will occur, and that is not chance, but merely a matter of odds. But in reality, can chance ever result in anything but chaos? In 1860, after Darwin published his theory of evolution, a man named T.H. Huxley, a supporter of Darwin and evolution by chance, proposed a theory as evidence of the possibility or the probability of the role of chance in evolution. He theorized that 6 monkeys, typing randomly for millions and millions of years, would type all of the books in the British Museum. In his book, The Philosophical Scientist, David Foster takes that theory to task using modern technology to calculate the odds of such an achievement. His mathematical findings were that if all of the monkeys that have ever been typed for all the time there has ever been, there would still be a shortfall ratio of more than 100 million millions, and that relates only to typing one line of text of one book in the British Museum. He expounds on the calculation, but again, I don't have the time or the intelligence to repeat it. And there are other obvious problems with the theory of chance evolution of the living organism once it existed. If evolution is concerned mainly with the survival of an organism, then why did modifications and adaptations occur when they weren't needed? For instance, if an organism exists and has always existed in a world of darkness and silence, surviving and living successfully in that environment, even in the face of competition and changing conditions, then there is no logical reason for the development of such organs that produce sight and sound. Consider in addition, with the appearance of that new organ, the eye for instance. The organism not only had to develop the physical eye with its complex retina, but also had to simultaneously develop an entirely new support system of nerves uniquely designed to collect the various intensities of light, convert the light to electrical impulses, and communicate those impulses to a part of the brain that was capable of identifying that data and turning that information into images. The theory that this organ with all of these unique nerves and a brain that could translate this information into sight, all occurring by chance, over time and yet simultaneously, is illogical. Some people refer to this evolution of complex processes as irreducible complexity, since the process of sight and sound cannot be reduced by any one of its parts. Otherwise, it will not function at all. Certainly, adaptations like fins or other appendages that would help an organism to move more quickly would give them an advantage over the competition. But sight and hearing, having not been present in any previously existent organism, would not have been a natural progression necessary for survival. This same argument holds true for the development of all vital organs. As I mentioned, if evolution is mainly concerned with survival, then an organism with an already functioning system would not need to have that system modified, that is to say, not drastically modified. And along that same line of thought, if these modifications did occur slowly over time, with the essential support systems being developed deliberately for their eventual use as part of some complex system, then something, somewhere, had to know what the end result of this development would be. Something had to dictate how all of these parts would fit together in order to accomplish the final objective, that of hearing or seeing. Who knew that sight would be needed? Who knew that wings would be needed? Did evolution make these decisions? If we credit evolution with these intelligent designs, we're simply saying that evolution is an intelligent, creative, supernatural entity. We are calling evolution God. Now, here's the biggest question I had when I was doing my research and examining evolution by coincidence or chance. Again, if evolution is mainly concerned with survival and natural selection, then I will ask the question, what creature has the best assurance of survival? One that is unisexual, possessing a male or female productive organ only, or one that is hermaphroditic, one that possesses both reproductive organs and can reproduce itself without a mate? Logically, the one that has the best chance for survival would be the one that is self-sufficient, that could reproduce on its own, guaranteeing the survival of the species. So why was there a gender split, male and female? And how did this occur? If this split occurred as a mutation, chances are it would not have been able to reproduce itself, or it would have reproduced a mix of hermaphroditic and gender-specific individuals. And if it were a mutation, it probably would have become extinct given that there were no available mates. Now, even though it is illogical, let's suppose that that is what has happened, that there was this gender split as part of some mutation. Seeing that virtually all organisms have male and female gender, it means that this mutation not only occurred in one species, but in almost all of the species that exist today. It is not logical that the development of genders occurred as a part of natural selection, since natural selection is concerned with what works best for survival. The appearance of gender is one of the strongest arguments against a system of natural selection as the only means of evolution. I'd like to add one other problem with evolution strictly by natural selection. In The Origin of the Species, Darwin observes that only those adaptations that benefited the survival of the organism became permanent in that organism. He says, natural selection will never produce in a being anything injurious to itself, for natural selection acts solely by and for the good of each. No organ will be formed for the purpose of causing pain or for doing any injury to its possessor. Knowing this, we have to ask the question, how possible is it that adaptations and variations, not just in one organism, but a myriad of organisms, were beneficial 100% of the time if we attribute those modifications to chance? Where in history or science do we have an example that illustrates how chance produces only positive results 100% of the time? Conversely, it is simple to illustrate how chance cannot produce consistent results. Chance is not consistent or dependable. Chance is random. Chance is about odds. And the odds that chance will always result in a positive outcome is illogical, unreasonable, and does not conform to reality. And here's my last observation. It might sound a little silly at first, but think about it. Why are we humans the only creatures with a higher level of development? Consciously, intellectually, psychologically, and emotionally. There were a lot of other creatures that evolved in the same areas that humans did, in the same environment, under the same conditions. Why didn't they too evolve in similar ways to humans? Shouldn't there be a species of tiger that can talk and think and use logic to make decisions? Shouldn't a bear be sitting at the United Nations debating global warming? Why were humans the only ones to reach this pinnacle of development? Why were we the only ones whose brains grew and developed such capabilities as we have today? The only logical conclusion is that evolution does occur to some extent, but the code or process for evolution, call it natural selection or whatever, was dictated by a well-defined design that was the result of the work of an intelligent designer, the original life, the first cause. And believe it or not, in his book, The Origin of the Species, Darwin was not arguing the existence or non-existence of a creator. What he was arguing against is the idea of the creation of each species being an independent act without the aid of evolutionary involvement. He says believing that theory makes the works of God a mere mockery and deception. Even Darwin believed in the hand of God in creation. In fact, on several occasions, he refers to a creator. There are still many holes that must be filled concerning evolution. One of the problems we face in this investigation of evolution is that many experts are so focused on their particular discipline that they tend to develop tunnel vision, seeing their specialization as the only science that matters. If we take a step back and look at all of nature as one entity, we can recognize that each area of science is no more than a part of the whole. If we examine astronomy, we can easily see the tremendous order of the universe. Can chance result in consistent seasons, in variable tides, in planets that remain century after century confined to their specific orbits, each affecting the movement of the others? Can the Earth, Sun, and Moon be positioned by chance so that we have light and warmth part of the day and cool darkness the other? If we examine behavioral science and recognize the wonder of cause and effect, action and consequence, and how these things bring order to life, and if we add to that the examination of evolution, we cannot help but acknowledge the tremendous order and design of all things. Coincidence? There are far too many occurrences to be coincidence or chance. The odds against it are far too great. All of these aspects of nature, logically and reasonably, cannot have been accidental, but the perfect design of an indescribable, incomprehensible, intelligent, creative existence. We've shown that belief in a supreme being of some sort is logical and reasonable, much more in fact than the alternative. I will admit that it finally comes down to faith, but so does accepting all theories, in science as well as religion. However, it requires much more faith to believe in the theory of spontaneous generation and chance evolution. Creation, the universe as a whole, is irrefutable proof that there is an intelligent creator. Any other option is illogical. Now, if you'd like to get a little more detail, look over what we've talked about, you might want to get my book, Are We Being Deceived? It's available at Amazon.com in ebook and in paperback, or you can order it through your local bookstore. I hope to see you for the next session.